Today, I'm going to show you how to create Dead Man's Toes and a Dash of Pox. This is the third and final video in our series of the ingredients of the life potion from Hocus Pocus. The things we'll need to create our Dead Man's Toes and a Dash of Pox is one wood box. So I decided to store my toes in a wood box. I thought that was appropriate for the time period. And we're also going to use some moss. Believe it or not, you cannot find fake toes anywhere, which seems really weird, especially because of the whole Dead Man's Toes thing. But at Party City, I did find these severed fingers, and we're going to transform these severed fingers into severed toes. To transform the toes and make them look a little bit more dead, we're going to use a combination of some ink pads, and I have a sage green, I have a deep red, and then we're going to use some of the Distress Oxide, and I have the black soot, and then we're going to use some vintage photo, and we're going to do a combination of paper towel and some of these makeup sponges. And then for a Dash of Pox, we're going to use a glass bottle, and this is one out of the Target selection they have this year. It was another 2-pack, similar to what we used for Blood of an Owl and Herb of Red. So this one had a label on it that said Wicked Rose, I believe, and it came with the same bottle we used for Herb of Red. But this shape of bottle is pretty easy to find at most craft stores. And we're going to use some rubbing alcohol. I have some black mica powder. We're going to use some yellow and red food coloring, and today I'm going to use the liquid kind, but you could also use gel. We're going to use a funnel to help with filling, as well as some sandpaper to rough it up. We're going to need scissors. I have some black creepy cloth back here. I have some black cording. And finally, we will need our labels printed on sticker paper, and the link for this is in the description down below. Let's get started. Would you like a chance to win one of my potion bottles? Then consider supporting me over on Patreon. All of my patrons have a chance to win a monthly potion bottle. Link is in the description down below. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our Dead Man's Toes. And of course, Winnie says, make it a fresh one. So, well, what's more fresh than some bloody toes? So, like I said, for whatever reason, you can't find fake toes. You can find fake feet, fake fingers. You can find fake arms, legs, heads. You name it, you can find the appendage. But for whatever reason, toes don't exist. So I've checked Amazon, you name it, Spirit of Halloween, other Halloween stores, they just don't have them. So, like I said, at Party City, my sister actually found this container of severed fingers because she knew the struggle I was having trying to find fake toes. And if you don't find these and you want to make your own, you could definitely use some air dry clay. It's just not my favorite thing to do, and I would rather transform something that you can buy rather than try to make the toes from scratch with the air dry clay. So these we thought would work perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this open, and I'm going to show you how we're going to transform these. First of all, I just think this is a really fun prop to have. Woo, there go the toes or fingers. Okay. So one thing I noticed with some of these is that they have kind of long fingernails, so I decided we're going to cut those off. Now, you could definitely get some nail trimmers and trim them that way, but I'm literally just going to use my scissors and just kind of make it look more like the nail of a toe rather than a nail of a manicured hand. So, and you can actually use some of the sandpaper to file down any weird rough edges, or a nail file will work just fine too. But we're basically just going to kind of get it more into a shape that looks more like a toe. So this one's more flat now, so we're able to get more of the toe look. Now, obviously, this is too long for a toe, but these are made of like a rubber, so we can just cut it down. So we're going to trim the toe. And as you can see, they are hollow inside, which actually works out really nicely because I don't want it to just be a gaping hole. So we're going to cut the bone part of this off as well. And then we'll just discard the rest of the holy finger. And before I put these together, I'm actually going to take some of my deep red stamp pad here, and I'm going to bloody up the end here so that it looks more severed. And then we're going to take the bone part and we're going to, and it's obvious, it's a little easy to kind of flex these. We're going to shove it into the finger, which will also widen out the base a little bit, which again makes it look a little bit more like a toe. Okay, so we just shove this in, and you can shove it in as deep as you want, but as you can see, this already looks a whole lot more like a toe than it did before. And now we can actually kind of dip the bone part into a little bit of the red as well, and this dries pretty quickly. Now, this isn't the only thing we're going to do to these toes. They look a little too fresh cut off, and we want them to still look like, you know, maybe they're a couple days old. They're still fresh. They're still going to smell, but we don't want them to be like fresh cut off 2 seconds ago. So to do that, you could use a paper towel or a makeup sponge here, or felt, anything like that, but you just want to pick up some of your color. And because skin, when it dyes, turns kind of a gray green and then eventually kind of a purpley color, I thought, well, if it's still fresh, it's going to be more green than it is purple. So I decided we're going to take just a little bit of the green ink pad, and you can brush some on, and then if you put too much on, you can just kind of rub it off, but it will dry, and then it'll kind of keep that finish on the toe, which is really cool. It also kind of helps dull the blood just a little bit. So right now we already have a difference just between the green and no green. It already is looking a little more dead. And then to add just a little bit more, we're actually going to use some of the black soot Distress Oxide. Again, I'm going to use my makeup pad. You could also, like I said, use a paper towel, anything like that. We're just going to pick a little bit up, and then we're going to rub it on the toe. And what this is going to do is kind of get in those crevices and just, again, make it look a little bit more dead. You know, think of Billy Butcherson. He's kind of a green, gray, blue color because he's been dead quite some time. And make sure you get a little bit on the bone as well. Obviously, it would still be bloody, but it's not going to be perfectly white either. Okay. So we have our dead man's toe, which I think looks really good now, especially when you compare it to a fresh finger. See how it just looks a lot more zombie-like or dead? And now I'm going to do the same thing to the rest of these fingers. And here we have our dead man's toes. So just for some perspective, here is what it looked like before, and here is what it looks like now. So quite a difference, super easy, just rubbing it on, you know, from an ink pad and a little Distress Oxide, and you have yourself some glorious dead man's toes. For our little box here that we are going to put our toes in, I just want to age it up. I don't want it to have a shiny, stained finish or anything like that because it's in the Sanderson Sisters cottage. It's not like it's going to be pristine, especially if they're putting dead man's toes in it. So I kind of want to just age this up a little bit. So that's why we're going to use the Distress Oxide, and I'm going to use one of my makeup sponges again. And because the label I made has this like yellowy aged coloring to it, I felt like the vintage photo Distress Oxide will kind of just warm up the box and will help to give it more of an aged look. So I'm going to just rub some of the Distress Oxide over the entire box, and we'll be able to get a really great finish that will match our label. And there we have our distressed box that I think goes with our label really nicely. And again, I just used the sponge and basically went through and just kind of rubbed all of the edges, went with the grain of the box, and then that way I got this great variegated old look all over the whole box. You could definitely paint this, you could leave it, you could do whatever you want to it, but I thought this looked like it was just sitting on the shelf in their cottage. And again, it matches the label really nicely. So speaking of the label, we are going to go ahead and put that on. Now, you'll notice that the label would fit like this on the box really well, but if I wanted to put it this way, it's a little big. So I actually want to kind of put this on a little haphazardly, like maybe they just slapped the label on, and I kind of think I want to do it at an angle like this. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the backing paper off of our sticker paper. I did go around the outside edge of this with a matching marker, again, just to give it a little bit more of a finished look. Also hides any cutting imperfections. So like I said, I think I just kind of want a haphazard look on here, and I don't know if I want it to go that way or this way. Kind of think I want it to go this way. So I'm going to start over here on the edge that it's going to kind of go over, and I'm going to press it and stick it down into all of the little creases. So it just looks like when they put it on, it slipped over the edge of the box and then just kind of stuck from there. And I'm going to continue to smooth this out. Okay, so we've got our dead man's toes on our box, and I love that it goes over the edge. Now, if you wanted to, you could definitely take some of the Distress Oxide and kind of go over the whole thing around the edges to kind of make it feel like it goes into it. But because this is such a close color match, I really don't feel like I need to do that on mine. But it is a way that you can get yours to blend with whatever color or finish you decide to do in your box. So I decided that the toes should be sitting on something in there, so that's what we're going to use the moss for. So I'm going to load my box with the moss. So now that I have my moss inside my box, I can now load my toes in here. I think we've got a good little mix there of our toes. So now we have our dead man's toes, and when we open it up, we have a fresh box. Now onto our Dash of Pox. So we're going to use our bottle, and because I'm going to use alcohol in here to fill it, I like to change the regular cork out for a rubber cork, and this is a number 1 cork. So that way it'll just kind of keep the contents from evaporating. Now if this is for just a party or anything like that, you can still use the regular cork. But if you're going to use the regular cork, I actually recommend that you do distilled water with just a tiny bit of glycerin. You also could do distilled water with a little bit of alcohol, and that will help keep the contents from getting yucky over time. But it will also be safer for your regular cork. The first thing I want to do with this, just like we have with all of the other bottles in this series, is I want to rough it up, and then I'm going to use some of the Black Soot Distress Oxide to get into the crevices. Okay, so I got my bottle all scuffed up here, and I'm going to use my Distress Oxide now. And I think that looks good. All right, so now to finish off this bottle, we are going to fill it up with our alcohol. And I actually think that's good. I don't want to overfill this one, especially since we're going to use some creepy cloth. I want you to be able to see a difference. So I want this to be a deeper orange color to kind of match the label. So we're going to add just a drop of yellow to start. And we're going to add 2 drops of red. And I'm going to cork this and shake it up. So we get our orange color here. And I actually think I want to add just 1 more drop of red to this. Okay, And that deepened it up, I think, just enough. Now, because it's a Dash of Pox, I thought that a black mica powder would be a really nice touch. And the mica powder I'm using, I got in I think it was a 6 or 8 pack of black and champagne and gold and silver mica powder from Michael's. And it's actually a kind of a thicker mica. It's not as fine ground as some of the mica powders we get, which for this one I actually think works because it settles a lot quicker than the ultra fine mica powder that we normally use, which I actually think gives kind of a cool look for a Dash of Pox because, you know, it's just kind of like the pox is flaring up. So we're going to add some of our black mica powder. And I'm going to see if that's enough. Now, the other thing about this one is it is a metallic black, but it's not like super swirly like some of our other ones. It'll just kind of change the color. Like I said, there is a little bit of a shine. It's even hard for you guys to see on here, but not a lot. But if you can, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell. Let me actually put a piece of white behind it. So it's already settling, which is really, I think, for this one, kind of cool because you'll be able to take it right back to that bright orange color and it'll flare up to the dark, deep, blackish orange very quickly, and then it'll go right back to the other one. So we get a nice color shift on this one, and you don't have to wait a really long time for it to change back. But I do think I want a little bit more of the black in there because I want it to be a really deep change, so it is definitely noticeable when we shake it up. And again, I'll hold this white behind it just so you can see. We get a really great blackish, deep, deep, deep orange, and then it immediately starts to settle. And that's not on time lapse. I mean, this is just real time. This is how it's settling, which again, I think for this one is perfect. Now that we have our Dash of Pox potion here, I'm going to go ahead and put our label on, and I'm going to decide what side I want that on. And I actually think the side I had to the front is the side I like the best. So I haven't gone around the outside edge of this one yet. And for this one, I actually think I'm just going to do kind of a peachy, creamy color to go with the middle because I feel like I won't have a marker that's that color orange. So again, it'll help give it a more finished look, cover up any inconsistencies in your cutting. And the marker I'm using now, and the markers I use most of the time when I'm doing these, is a mixed box from Five Below, less than $5 for a whole pack of like 18 markers or something like that. And they are really nice permanent markers, similar to the kind that you'd get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby for way more money. And it is double-ended, which is cool, but totally worth it. All right, so now that we went around the outside edge, I can peel the backing paper off. All right, and we'll put our label on here. Okay. I think that's pretty good. We're going to rub this down. And for this one, because we do have the Distress Oxide on here, I'm actually going to add just a little bit to the outside of our label so that the whole thing just kind of blends. And I think that just kind of finishes it up. Now, honestly, I mean, you guys saw this was pretty much in real time. And do you see how quick it settled back to our orange color? And then all we have to do is give it a shake, and it goes to our blackish orange. And then it'll settle right back out, which I think is really awesome for a Dash of Pox because it kind of seems like it's just a dash. So for this one, we're going to use some creepy cloth, and I do love me some creepy cloth. And again, you can find this at the Dollar Tree. You could find it at Walmart, Target, you name it, but it's obviously cheaper at the Dollar Tree. And for this, let me find one of the edges on here. We're going to cut a little square. Actually, I'm going to cut a decent sized square because I think I might double it over. And that's the beautiful thing about Creepy Cloth is it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so now that I've got my section of Creepy Cloth here, I'm going to fold it over. And then I think I'm going to fold it over again. Maybe not. So we're going to fold it over just so we have 2 layers here, and then we're going to tie it down with some of our jute cording. Now I'm going to tie this just like I normally do, but I'm going to have the Creepy Cloth underneath, and then we'll trim the Creepy Cloth when we're done so that it looks, you know, more finished. Okay, and we don't need a crazy amount of loops, just enough to lock it in, kind of give the bottle a little bit of definition. All right, so right now, this is what we have on the top. So now I want to trim my Creepy Cloth down here so it's not all over the place. And what I love about Creepy Cloth is you can stretch it out, pull it, fray it, add a whole bunch of different dimension to it, which is really cool in a bottle. Okay, and I'm actually thinking that's probably pretty good. Just enough to kind of add a little bit of creepiness to it. And again, it looks old. It's got that Distress Oxide on the glass underneath of it. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good look for this one. Something a little different. And there we have our Dash of Pox. And there we have it, our Dead Man's Toes and a Dash of Pox. And our Dash of Pox is able to transform into our deep black color. And we have our creepy, fresh Dead Man's Toes. Well, this is the last of our ingredients needed for the life potion. So we had oil of boil, Newt Saliva, blood of an owl, herb of red, dead man's toes, and a dash of pox. And all that would be needed to finish our potion would be to pluck a hair from our head and add a bit of thine own tongue, which would be done fresh over the cauldron. I hope you guys liked this series, and if you're interested in learning how to make the life potion, I will put a link to that up above as well as at the end of the video. And if you're interested in learning how to make a black flame candle, you can check out my book, The Wizard's Craft Book, where I take you step by step and show you how to not only make the life potion, but I show you how to make the black flame candle. And there we have it, all of our ingredients of the life potion as well as the life potion. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. If you have, please give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we will catch you guys later. Thanks so much.